Hi, welcome back to the Justice and Faith Show.
Welcome back, everybody.
We are here with Labrina and Brett Myers, and we know them because we've gone to their magic show a few times, and they're wonderful. So
that's why the show is called Magic and Wonder.
Yes. So, so we actually asked them to come on because just from the 5 times we've gone to their show.
I've lost count.
It's been a lot of times. We've just kind of come to like their personality shines through when they do their show, and we've come to like really like them as a couple.
Honestly, I wanted to bring them on because I wanted Brett to tell me a magic secret or two.
Okay.
No, I'm joking.
But so we are going to have them talk to us today about like relationships and marriage and some of the struggles that maybe they faced in their past and present and whatever. So we are going to hand it over to them real quick so that they can just do a quick little introduction of who they are. So go ahead, guys.
All right, you go ahead. Start first.
Okay. Hi, I'm Labrina. And Brett and I have been married 9 years.
9 years.
Just had our 9-year anniversary.
Wow.
But I'm originally from Tennessee. Brett and I met when we were both in college, not at the same one, but we met at a magic conference. Super nerdy, I know. And then currently living in Pennsylvania, which is where you're from.
Yeah, my name is Brett Myers. I'm originally from Pennsylvania. I kind of grew up in Chambersburg, about an hour and a half from Lancaster, where we currently live. And I got started doing magic when I was a teenager. Started doing it as a ministry in college, traveling around doing magic shows at churches. And then while I was in college, I went to a magic conference in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, that was all about sort of connecting folks that were interested in the art of illusion with sharing the gospel. It was called Advance, where you actually learn how to sort of do magic and learn the craft of basically gospel illusions and a better way of sharing your faith using that. And that's when I met Labrina. She was actually training with one of the folks that was leading the conference, and they sort of played matchmaker and connected the two of us, and it worked.
Oh, good. Wow. All right. That's cool.
Very awesome story. So other than being kind of put together or being in that environment where you both had a lot of similarities, what were some of the initial things, Labrina, that attracted you to Brett?
His blue eyes. He has blue eyes. Yeah. So there's that. I actually knew who he was before the conference, kind of accidentally. I felt like a stalker because I was working registration. I'd come across his website 3 months earlier, and I was like, this guy actually looks like he cares about, looking professional, and he's kind of got his act together. At least it looked like it. I didn't know. I was like, maybe he's a jerk. But the thing that I was impressed by once I got to meet him was just how humble he was, how down to earth, and is unpretentious a word? It is now. So basically just how he didn't have an ego issue. So
yeah, I will say, Google, you can make yourself look better than probably you actually are. So I think, I had created a website that was advertising sort of me as a speaker, illusionist coming to a church. And it's something that, I think you found out about it through a Google ad or something like that. And we realized that, I guess you had reached out to me after you had seen a friend of mine perform at our college doing magic. And he was a bit older than us, but, and you reached out and basically said, hey, I was seeing this performance and saw that you did the same thing and think that was cool. And so, yeah, we basically had a conversation before ever even meeting through email. I thought that she was 14. So I kind of had a policy in place. I was, I think, 20, 21 at the time. And I kind of had a policy of like, I would respond twice because again, I was performing at churches, I was performing at camps. And so you would get emails from
fan
folks.
mail.
I wouldn't call it fan mail. It was more of just like, hey, that was really cool. I enjoyed the show, blah, blah, blah. And that was fun. And again, I tried to always, respond to that stuff.
Because he's not a jerk, which is nice.
But also not encouraging something unhealthy because you want to keep boundaries in place when you are in ministry and want
just
to keep.
in general,
Yeah, I mean, it's just something where you just kind of have to navigate that, where you want to be kind, but you also don't want to foster some unhealthy relationship with a young person.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Good job.
Found out I wasn't
I found out that
14.
she wasn't 14. She was actually closer to my age when we actually met in person. So it was kind of funny that I had this in my head that Labrina was a 14-year-old girl, because again, I assumed that if she had come to the college performance, which was kind of geared towards the community, that she was probably someone in middle school or high school from the surrounding area. But I was wrong. She was actually from a college that was about an hour away. But again, it's kind of one of those things when you correspond with somebody through email, you don't necessarily know who you're talking to, but you kind of fill in some of the gaps. But it was just funny that we actually met in person, that one of the very first thoughts I had of Labrina when I actually met her was like, wow, this is the most beautiful girl I've ever met in my entire life. She was very attractive. She, had gorgeous hair. And yeah, she was just very sparkly personality. Like she just, and kind of lit up the room when you walked in there. And she was working the registration desk and kind of gave me my badge for the conference and all that stuff. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only thing I will advise you of, Brett, is make sure you're speaking in present tense.
Oh. She had
good hair.
Oh,
yeah, that's
that's true. Yeah.
She still has all
She
those
still
things.
does. I mean, you can look at her now and she has the glow. But yes, thank you. That is very good advice. Yeah. So
Little tip, we all gotta learn it. I gotta make sure I speak in the present tense. So
yeah, there you go. There you go. Good advice. Thank you.
So we're gonna go even further back in your lives, because the people who watch our show, they know like all of our kind of background and stuff like that, and where we're coming from, which we feel is an important part of where we are now. So
we're going to switch it just because the people we typically talk to in our background is very much different. This is actually another reason why I like you guys being on here. So the fact that you can attest to this, so like the way that you grew up and when you were dating, you had a specific I don't want to say mindset, but you had a specific way you went about dating.
okay.
Oh, you're back.
That's one of the pitfalls of doing Zoom on your phone.
Oh my goodness, you have to do not disturb or something like that. But no, so Christian background, Christian household, mine too, but not as conservative. Didn't work out the same way. There was no real boundaries put on me when it came to certain things, and I didn't know how to navigate things in a way that I know how to navigate now. I know Faith is familiar with that. You two seem like you have some familiarity with trying to connect with people who are being led a certain way, as far as spirituality, as far as I don't want to say principles, but like your backgrounds are different. So I don't usually will ask like about a past relationship or like how those things worked out. I'm trying to frame it in a way that's comfortable. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I wasn't necessarily going to ask about relationships per se. I was just about to say just like what people or things when you were younger influenced you the most. So not necessarily your relationship, but like how did you grow up? Who influenced you as you were growing up?
Are we saying influence them as a whole, or are we saying influence them as in relationships and marriage?
As a whole, just like because it's important to know where people come from to see where they are now. So just as a whole in general.
That could be a very short story, a very long story.
It could be.
Okay, I'm fine.
So whoever wants
Do you want it to be a short story or a long story?
Whatever you guys are comfortable with, that's all. I just wanted to clarify and make sure that's it.
I think background-wise, Labrina and I came from very like opposite backgrounds as far as like faith journey. So I grew up sort of going to a Mennonite school. I went to a private Christian school, so it was kind of very conservative as far as like traditional form of worship, like doing the liturgy, doing the, I went to a traditional service with my grandparents. So it was kind of very, I don't know what the word is for it, but kind of like it was, I grew up in a Church of the Brethren church, went to a Mennonite school. So it was kind of, opposite from what you grew up in, because you grew up in a Pentecostal background. Yeah. So again, it was like completely different sort of sides of the Christian coin or whatever. Like mine was very traditional, very like hymns and kind of old school type of church.
But I think that even influenced our family backgrounds a bit, because so both of us in some ways were not from different backgrounds, because both of us were pretty spoiled. Like both of our parents are alive. Both of our parents, like our sets of parents, are still together, which we're very honored and thankful for. And yet whenever we were dating, and even in those first couple of years of marriage, when you find out all the things that you expected that you didn't realize you had expectations about, and we're like, oh, we actually had some pretty different vibes in our home. So with my family, like my dad's a pastor, and again, it's in a church that is very open and expressing emotions and feelings. And that was the same in my family too, where like if my parents were like, if we were excited, we were having fun, we were out, we were super loud, we were having a great time outside. Like my dad had a way of making every chore fun. I don't know how he did it, but somehow raking leaves was a game. And this is a like critical memory in my childhood. And like I was very used to hearing my parents say, I love you. Like they were very affectionate, and I felt safe. And that was just part of our family, like physical touch and hugs and, you know, like snuggles. All of that was just part of life. That was normal. And I think that your parents love you so much.
Yeah.
It's just a different.
It's just different. But yeah, I think like when we met, I know like you were kind of going through a time where you were questioning a lot when it came to what you believed, why you believed it. And I felt like because of that and our almost seemingly polar opposite, different spiritual backgrounds, we were able to say like, we agree upon Christ. We agree upon like Jesus is something that we feel like is foundational. And the other things that are outside of that, like maybe, I don't know, like we can have conversations about it, but it was kind of like we were rooted in saying that we believe that, you know, Jesus was who he said he was, the resurrection happened, that we are committed to following Christ's teaching, and then the doctrine and the theology that different denominations have really emphasized. Like for my background in denomination, you know, I feel like there was a very strong emphasis on peace and non-resistance and turning the other cheek and loving your enemy. And it was kind of, you know, I feel like I would agree at a core value, but I still kind of question some of the like doctrine that was, because of that, we don't serve in the military. Because of that, we don't follow this. And I kind of found disagreement with that. And I feel like with your background, there were certain things maybe that were very key doctrinally, but we might say, you know what? We agree upon this thing, which is Christ is the foundation of our home. We want to honor and love Christ through our lives. And some of the other things that denominations and different expressions of the Christian faith really emphasize and say, this is core. We would say, you know, that's not really important to us.
I think the thing that was important is that we decided early on that we wanted to be together. So regardless of so we had different backgrounds, we had different experiences, but we wanted, you know, our parenting styles. We didn't want it to just be like, oh, that's a Brett thing, that's a Brina thing. Like we had to come together and decide, okay, but really what do we care about? Because we wanted to be unified. So when it came to, I grew up, I remember hearing when I was a kid, and it kind of freaked me out that divorces, they happen at an alarming rate. But one of the biggest things that people disagree about would be money, sex, and even like their religion. And I was like, well, and then also with kids, you know, there were some pretty big issues at the top where when people disagreed on those, and they never came to an understanding, they never could trust and rely on each other in those areas, that the relationship would disintegrate and fall apart. And so early on, those were a lot of the conversations we were having, which I think is why it's coming up. Like, well, we came from different church backgrounds, but what do we believe? And we had different, like our parents had different parenting styles, but like, what are we about? What are the values that we're going to bring into our marriage? We had a lot of those conversations.
Right. Yeah.
That's
great.
That's important. That we did. No, we did not. We did, but we
Yeah,
didn't,
yeah.
because just hearing you guys, and I don't know how that happened. With as
Yeah.
much as I talk now,
I know.
as the way I am now, is if I was that way then, we might not have. It might not have happened.
Maybe not.
Because I can't believe some of this stuff skated underneath. Because just hearing that, that's amazing. That's how it should be, especially with our background is even more different.
Yeah, because I don't know if you guys, just a little snippet, we were married, then we got divorced. We got divorced for 3 years, and now we're remarried, and we're coming up on, it'll be 2 years this year. So
Wow.
that's a little snippet about our background.
And that's one of the unique things about us. But like I just said, like when we got married the first time, the expectations. I remember you told me you were like didn't have any expectations. Your expectations were very minimal.
Yeah,
very basic.
like, these are just
even
things.
Getting back together. I will never forget when I asked her when we got back, we had a discussion, and I said I have these expectations. This is it, because I didn't want to remarry when we did.
Right.
I wanted to be I actually wanted to be single. I didn't want to deal with anything because I was transitioning and dealing with stuff, and I was trying to get back to my faith walk. And when I asked her, "What do you require?" What did you say?
I said, "Don't, like, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna do it for real this time."
Yeah, like, don't divorce me.
Yeah.
That was what she said. She said, "Don't divorce me." And I think it's actually on a podcast where we're on somebody else's podcast, and it came, and I was just like, I will never forget that.
Yeah.
On your deathbed, or my deathbed, I'm gonna bring that back up, like you just like, well, I didn't do it, but it was just, it allowed me to understand that's important to her. So now, like before, I was never thinking about divorce. So what you said, Labrina, was very important. You don't think like we love each other. Yeah, you think it's going to be okay. And it literally triggered when we got married, because our backgrounds are different. So there's a lot of stuff I was accustomed to. I didn't know about her. Like, we had never spent the night. There was so many things. And so when we got married, it was like a switch. When they say it happens, I had never thought, but it was like we went from enjoying each other's company and everything was fine. Then we got married, and then it was like, boom. And I was like, this is not it. Look to the cross. Look to the triangle your dad made about we're supposed to be going up closer to God. And it was difficult for me because my faith walk was always not shaky, but it was different because I don't have the kind of foundation you guys have. So I had to figure a lot out by myself without trying to do it by myself. So we ended up getting divorced, and then we got back to, we talked about the story, but I feel like there's pieces that got missed in it. But it's just important now because now we have some other talks are coming up now, and they're ramping up because they're more serious. And so what has to happen is, where's the foundation? And just like you said, like the foundation is Christ, and everything else is going to have to be worked out outside of that. And that's something that I don't think either of us really leaned into the first time, and I don't think we truly leaned into it. Like now it's really coming up because we can't lean on what we know or what we want. We really have to make that the foundational piece. So the fact that you guys were young and it started that way initially, that's awesome. That is amazing.
Well, I mean, in some ways, I think that because I told you my dad is a pastor, I think growing up, and he was very cautious to make sure that when people would talk to him about things, he wasn't disclosing information. But growing up in a home, you see people hurting, like, and coming to someone that they're trying to get wisdom from. And I would see people, I saw so many people, even in my own family, getting married, getting divorced, or living together, but not really having a marriage, not having something I wanted. And I saw my parents, and honestly, they made it look easy. I don't know. They had been married 13 years before I was born. And I walked into a relationship just dating, thinking it was going to be so much easier than it was. And I remember like the first few times that we had a disagreement, I was like,
this is not it.
Are we okay?
This is it.
Yeah. I think that was one of the challenges in our first few years of marriage was basically, I think your parents, because either they had been married for a longer time before they had you, or basically they had worked out a lot of this stuff that, conflict was not modeled in your home. So conflict was basically something that you never saw your parents having a disagreement, fighting. Whereas opposed to my family, I saw my parents fight, but I don't necessarily think that it was the healthy way of fighting. You know, you learn sort of your conflict, how you handle conflict. You kind of observe and absorb the way that your parents handle conflict, and you kind of say, okay, these were maybe healthy things that I saw my parents do, and then these were some unhealthy things that I saw my parents do. So these are things we want to model. But the challenge, I think, initially with us was it was like the fact that we were having a disagreement was a major red flag. The fact that we both came at it with such strong opinions and they were polar opposites of one another was like, we're like, this is not going to work.
You do it once a week.
I'm like, as I said, you know, to Labrina, I'm like, can we not like both disagree, but yet agree to disagree? Like in unity, say, okay, we don't see this the same way, but we are going to default to one another to say, okay, even though we don't have the same opinion on this, we're going to say we're deciding to go with this. This is what we're deciding together to do, even though, you know, both of us emotionally are on separate planets.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, because us going through what we went through, like that's why we started the podcast in the first place, because we were like, there's got to be other people out there who have gone through some of this stuff. If we can potentially help someone by showing them like there is hope, like you can be opposites and still like work through things, and like really just even though we went through all of that, we are so much better now than I ever thought was possible. Like we started this podcast and it's actually been almost like a therapy session for ourselves. Like we talk about everything before we go on and do the podcast. So we talked about all of the problems and stuff that we want to talk about on the podcast. So it's like we get a chance to really hash things out ourselves that we've been going through. And then because we don't talk about stuff that we don't have insight on, or like we don't want to come from a fake place. We don't want to come from like a superficial kind of place. We want everything we do to be genuine. And yeah, so that's why we started it in the first place. And talking to other couples is like kind of next step, because we only have so much knowledge. So we want to branch out and talk to other people because we just want to help as many people as we can.
Also, with
that's great.
I enjoyed the fact that you both seemed to have wanted it equally. And I think that walking in, at 8 years old, I decided I wanted a wife and a daughter. I haven't. So there were certain things that I didn't really think about. I didn't really process and think about them. And then once I had these things, I said, oh man, how do I deal with these things in an appropriate way? But I always wanted it. I didn't want a fancy house or car or anything like that. I wanted a family because I didn't grow up in a family. I grew up in foster care. So that's what I wanted. When I got you grew up Disney and fairy tales and all this type of stuff. So it's like marriage, yay. To me, it was very serious from the get-go. But I, as a man, I didn't know how to lead in a way that she would follow. And that actually came up in the second marriage, because it was a point I just stopped and I said, are you not leading me and respecting me because I'm not doing this or that? And I don't think it correlated to her until I asked in that way, because I said, you know, I'm right about pretty much, it sounds so arrogant, but you know, I'm right about so much that I say, but you literally will argue with me about it. Why?
Yeah.
And I had to just, like any ego that I had to like wipe it aside and go, if I'm putting my best foot forward and we're really grounded in Christ and we're really grounded in these things, it's up to me, despite my background, despite my trauma, to lead, no matter what. And so like when I hear, I don't think people get married, they don't want it. They don't, like, I want it now differently than I did before. So my ability to handle the pressures that come with it, like I wasn't joking when I said once a week, we have a disagreement or an argument, like we do. Yeah. Because there's always, because I like having deep, in-depth conversations, or I'll bring something up and she's just kind of like, I want to watch Monk or whatever you're watching at that particular time. And I'm just like, well, I want to talk about the state of the affairs in the world right now. And she's like, oh my goodness. Like, and I'm just like, that's just who I am. And we'll have a disagreement on something. And I'm not trying to argue, but our opinions are so polarizing. It comes to a degree where it's like, we do get really upset. And but I can't do what I would normally do. I can't just leave. I don't dislike her. I do, actually. I do dislike you in those moments, but I dislike you because I want so much for you to understand where I'm coming from. Because I understand where you're coming from. And you don't get it until like a couple days later. Like, I'm not trying to fight with you. I just want you to get on my team a little bit more.
It takes me a little bit to process things.
Yeah, and I process really quickly. She's like, do you understand? I said, I've been understood. I understood it before you said it. But I said, you need to work more understanding me. So it's just, yeah, it's more of a, it's deliberate. I don't think people get married and they do things deliberately. I think a lot of times they feel like things are supposed to just happen.
Right.
And people are just supposed to accept things and kind of stay status quo. We should always be growing because ultimately we're trying to be closer to Christ. So that's a constant growth every day.
Right.
So,
Well,
so go ahead.
No, go ahead, Labrina.
No, it was just a thing that you made me think of something that in any goal in life, whether it's business or I know you guys go to the gym, you're, committed to being healthy and just feeling good. And I think that whenever we go after a goal, there's often times that we don't even know how to count the cost. Like, how much is this goal going to cost us? It may cost a lot of sweat. It may cost a lot of, like if you're trying to eat healthy, it may cost actually meal prepping. Or in a business, you may have to invest. You may have to hustle hard for years before you turn a profit. But I don't think sometimes we know how to count the cost before going into marriage. So yeah, you're saying like, this is something I wanted. I was 8 years old. And how does an 8-year-old know what it actually means to have a wife and a daughter and to lead well? You can't until you experience it. And so I admire you guys for going through the hard stuff, finding out what it actually costs to have a great marriage, and then saying, okay, let's do this again and let's do it right this time. That's fantastic. And
Count the cost.
No, yeah, he wrote it down so he doesn't forget it.
No, I won't forget it because I always talk about sacrifice. I say if you want something great, you have to give up something to equal or greater sacrifice. And it's not always going to look like I like excitement and I like pizzazz, but I actually really need stability and some calm. And you see what I'm saying? Like I want to be wild and crazy, but yeah, wild and crazy. That's for boys. That's for that's a young man's game. Now you need stability and continued growth. So it's like, count the cost. And some days it's like, I want to do this, but ultimately it's not what I need. It's not when it's going to cost growth. And if it goes against the things that I'm really trying to be and who God sent me to be, then it's just not for me. So yeah, people don't understand there's a cost to the decisions, and it's a decision. We talk about that. Marriage is a decision, kids are a decision. You guys started going into business together. So when you did that was a very big decision. So actually, I don't think this is a question, but how did that work in regard to your marriage? Like, how did you come to that decision together and work through those nuances?
I mean, it is in many ways like, you married your business partner. So it's kind of like you're going into business, which a business partner is a different dynamic than just like your spouse. Like there's similarities and there's crossovers. Like the advantages are you get to dream together, you get to work together, you get to, experience that reward together. But the disadvantages to it are you also worry together. You also have the freakouts together. You also have the frustrations of like, I had this expectation that this was going to be done by this date and it's not being done. Or even like, having a conversation and saying like, listen, if this was any other person in our organization, this would not be acceptable. Like, we know, like, we would be having a conversation with this employee if this was happening. Yet we're married to each other and we're having to have this conversation. Like, it's just, I think that one thing I would throw out to you guys is I feel like one of the things that early on we learned, and I think that I learned it from a pastor, I think listening to Andy Stanley or some of the other pastors like Craig Rochelle that I've just read books and stuff like that and picked up different principles. It was this whole principle of filling in the gap. What they explain is that in life, there's always an expectation or there's always a gap between the expectation of what I thought was going to take place and the reality of what does take place. And we all have a choice of what we fill that gap in with. So we expected that we would arrive on time for this meeting. The reality is that we showed up 20 minutes late to it. So how do we fill that gap in? Well, I can either fill that gap in with, you know what? Labrina is irresponsible. She doesn't follow time well. she doesn't do, like it's not important to us, or I can fill in the gap and say, you know what? Labrina's managing a lot of things around the house right now. There's a lot of stress. There's a lot of things going on. And do I fill that gap in with grace? So I think one of the biggest frustrations and fights early on that we had was I would have the expectation that if we said we were going to arrive at a certain time, that we would arrive on that time. But inevitably, we would end up showing up late. And so I tried to challenge myself and say, what is the flip side to the coin? The coin you could read and say it's because someone is irresponsible, they're lazy, they don't prioritize their time well, they don't manage their time well. Or the opposite side of the coin is, you know what? There is no person in the world that I know that is better at stopping and dropping everything on a dime because something emotionally is going wrong in another person. For example, I struggle with anxiety. I struggle with panic attacks. When we first met early on, like I was really at a low. Like, I mean, I just was going through a lot of anxiety, depression, stress, like all that stuff. And I remember that Labrina, you know, if it was probably me in her shoes, I'd be like, babe, I'm tired. I don't have time to deal with your emotional baggage right now. You're going to have to just kind of sort through that. But she would stop. She would listen. She would say, I'm with you. I am for you. We're going to work through this together. And like, you know, I don't think that would come from a personality type like myself, who is more, you know, I want to stay on task. I'm okay with stopping and helping, but I want to make sure that I resume as quickly as possible my to-do list to get things done and accomplished. So filling that gap in with grace. If you fill the gap in with grace, which is to say, you know what, relationships are very important to Labrina. She wants to make sure that everything is okay and good, and time is a secondary, you know, priority. Seeing that as a strength as opposed to a weakness, I think really helps you with reframing some of those battles internally, because your mind just plays this game where you just, you know, automatically the anger just sort of festers and swells in you. But if you can reframe it and retool it to say it's not a weakness, but it's a strength. And when there is disagreement, like we've had conversations about like, well, why is this important to me? Well, it's important because if I walk into a room and I feel embarrassed because we're showing up late to a family get together and my family has the expectation that we're going to show up on time, but we're actually showing up 30 minutes late, then I feel embarrassed. And when I feel embarrassed, I feel angry. So it's kind of, instead of just being like, I'm angry, if you can pinpoint and say, you know what, the reason I'm angry is I feel embarrassed. I feel embarrassed because I feel like I'm not living up to the expectations of my parents. Or what they expect of me. I feel like I let them down.
And that is such an easier thing to hear when he's already reframed something that I've done in his mind. You know, he's already coming at it as, you're not a horrible person. He's just like, okay, I'm angry because I feel embarrassed. I can hear that so much easier and then apologize for my own crap versus someone getting in my face and just blowing up at me and saying like, what are you, so irresponsible? We said we were going to get out the door at this time. And yeah, I guess time doesn't matter to you. Like, that's an attack. I can't handle that very well. Yeah. So,
or even just saying,
nobody can.
I feel, we talked a lot about respect. We read the book Love and Respect early on in our marriage. And I feel like it was a great thing because it just showed how important for a man to feel respected, and that be a foundation, and the wife to feel loved. So cherished. Giving unconditional respect to the man and giving unconditional love to the wife, and feeling like you're cherishing the wife. But if I don't feel respected as a husband, it's very difficult for me to feel like I can share love, and vice versa. If Labrina doesn't feel cherished and loved, it's very hard for her to show respect. And so you get caught in this crazy cycle of the wife tosses insults and disrespect towards the husband, and the husband distances himself and isolates himself from loving the wife.
And it can be such a silent spiral. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I've kind of had to learn that it's my responsibility to also, while I'm filling in the gaps with that grace that Brett was talking about, it's my responsibility to also get over myself whenever I disagree with Brett and remind myself of who he is, and make sure that whenever I'm feeling like throwing daggers, and just even with my eyes, right? It doesn't have to be words. I'm really good at throwing daggers with my eyes, and they have deadly aim. To like this is something I'm constantly learning, that even my body language can communicate so much disrespect, and he picks up on it. And that's not love. Like if I'm disrespecting Brett, I'm not loving him well, and I'm not doing what I can to contribute to a healthy relationship.
Yeah. I think one of the key phrases that we learned early on was saying like, I'm on your side. I'm on your team. Like, and just that reminder of like, listen, we are in disagreement, but we're on the same side. We both want what's best for each other. And like that reminder in the heat of the moment, and say, you know what, I'm on your team. Like I'm for you. That helps to like lower the temperature a little bit. And for me to stop and hear what she's trying to say, as opposed to automatically getting defensive. Because I think whenever I feel attacked, like I automatically want to be on the defensive. But I think that reminder of like, we're on the same team. We're fighting for the same thing. We're allies in this.
And like, I still choose you. Like, I disagree with you right now, and I'm really angry. Like my emotions are heated, but being able to pull out of the moment enough just to even think about how is the other person feeling. Because I've had to remind myself, in 24 hours, my emotions will be different and we'll still be together. And how do I want to treat him in the next 24 hours, right? Like, when my emotions change, am I still going to be proud of how I'm behaving right now? Because you can fight a good fight. Like you can disagree and you can go in hard and you can like deal with the grit of marriage and be able to look back on that conversation and be like, yeah, but we did it well. Like we respected each other in the process. And I think that after 9 years of marriage, that's something I'm still not like, I wouldn't say that I have that down at all. It's more of a mental reminder to help me make sure that I'm not straying too far into like an emotionally like frenzied zone, I guess, when we're having those conversations.
Yeah. Okay. That's great.
And kind of, we're going to start wrapping it up with what are the most important things you've learned from marriage. But you guys, you gave like I feel like maybe a paraphrase of it, if there's any more direct statement, but honestly, like what you just said was, we're going to have a discussion. And I need to sleep, but we're going to have a discussion because there's a few things that you said that I've actually said a lot. And
I love the love and respect spiral thing because we've actually talked about that.
And then the whole I'm on your team, because historically a lot of the time I have expectations and I don't stray away from my expectations. I don't. Because I don't think my expectations are grandiose. As a man, as a husband, as a father, I know there's expectations on me. Like right now I'm up. I worked last night. But you know, we wanted to do this and we wanted to really talk to you guys. I mean, she's like, oh well, I didn't want to mess with you guys' time. So for me, I'm like, this is important that we get this done because it's something we're doing together. This is something special and we appreciate that time. So as a man, I have to go, hey, I'll get my sleep, or maybe I'll get a call and have a random meeting and I won't get my sleep and I have to pick your car up and all types of stuff. But I'm like, you know, I'm not upset about it. We're on the same, I have expectations of me that sometimes are greater than her expectations of me. So I always like not beat myself up, but I hold myself in high regard. So she sees that. So she's like, well, I don't want to, what do you say?
I don't want to put more pressure on you because you put enough pressure on yourself.
And I put pressure on me because you don't. And because I try not to put myself in a position where you have to, but I know that I'm not perfect and I have to grow. But I also want you to know that any expectations that I'm not going to ever expect anything for you that I would not do myself twice. Right. And that's just the example that I want to set. So it's funny that you said that about, you know, the love and respect. And the fact that she adores me. I'm not the easiest person to be with sometimes because of that. I'm slightly obsessive about being greater than I am. To an unhealthy degree, it seems sometimes, but I'm just like, I'm wired to try to work ahead because it's so easy to get knocked back and behind. So my expectations of how I work, like sometimes I'm like, you should do more. And I think in her mind, she goes, you want me to do as much as you? And I'm like, no, that's not it. It's just, I've outlined how I feel. And when I tell you how I feel, it's your responsibility to take what I've said to you when I've really been open with you. And as you said, Labrina, is respect that, because I told you how I feel. I told you what my expectations are. You can do whatever you want with it, but how I respond, and as Brett talked about, like sometimes we can distance ourselves. I don't really distance myself, but you know when I'm not right, when I'm not okay. So I love my family, so I always want to be here. I make sure I'm here and present as much as possible, but she can tell when I get distant, because it does happen, and then I can't love her correct, and I'll let her know. If these things happen, I can't give you what you might want to hug me and kiss me and smile at me, and I'm like, that's not what I want right now, because I don't, so that's a very important. I want to read that book. Do you by chance? I wrote down the name of it, but do you have the author? Love and Respect.
Hang on.
Is it in your office?
Yeah, I'll get it.
No, it's one that we've read. I've come back to and I've reread because I genuinely feel like I think Brett's better at loving me than I am at respecting him. So it's something I've gone back and looked at. I do. I think that often guys get a bad rap, and we put it on the guys of like, you need to do more. You need to like date your wife more. You need to cherish her. And I think sometimes, there you go. I don't know.
Is it backwards?
Probably.
I got it.
It's Dr. Emerson Egrix. I don't know how to say that.
Yeah.
I said Egrix.
But it's
That's close enough.
Yeah. It was a book that I remember. I think, was it our church recommended? I can't remember who recommended.
We read it before we got married.
We read it before we got married, and I remember like we come back to that conversation a lot. Where I think I resonate a lot with what you said with the whole thing of there's high expectations on myself as the man. Like I want to live above the expectations of my wife. I don't want to just like barely make it to like just bare minimum. What do I need to do? So I'm like constantly pushing and driving myself, and I succeed and I live up to a higher standard if there's someone behind me like Labrina believing I can do it, even believing the things where I really have the doubt and saying like, I just really don't know if we're going to be able to pull this off. Like I feel so much pressure to be able to make it to this next level, but I just really don't know if I have what it takes. And to have Labrina behind me saying, you know what, you don't really believe in yourself right now, but I've seen you do things that you before thought were impossible, and I believe in you this time. Then I'm just like, that fills my tank. Like that just, I'm ready to go out and I'm ready to go like, live higher than I thought I could. And I would say like, just, for me personally, that is so important to the foundation of our success. Because if I had someone behind me that was just saying like, you're going to mess up, you're going to fail, you can't do this, you messed up before, like I would like, there would be nothing that we wouldn't accomplish even a fourth of what we've been able to accomplish together with just sort of that foundation that she provides.
Yeah. So just in closing, because we do want to wrap up so that you guys can continue on with your morning, but one phrase or word or something that you guys kind of want to say to just wrap up everything, like what's something that you want to leave our viewers with, like a key to your success?
Assume the best.
Yeah, I believe the best. Like,
yeah. Some people say love is blind, and I think that there is more truth to that, in that love is willing to have the difficult conversations when difficult conversations need to be had, but love also assumes the best. Love fills in the gap with grace. Love extends the best narrative and the best story possible to the situation that we're experiencing. And I think that, if we can do that, not just in marriage, but in every relationship we have, where you give the benefit of the doubt, the best possible explanation for what you see, I think that relationships would be so much better.
And it's on like the smallest things. It can be on big topics, like running a business together, or it can be those little things of me reminding myself to, if he's driving and I'm in the passenger seat, or vice versa. But like for me, if I'm not the one driving, just being like, I married an intelligent human being who has survived X number of years so far without me telling him how to drive. It's gonna be okay. Like just those little things.
Oh, that's so funny. I that should be my mind. I married it. I think I make her nervous. when she drives. Like, okay. I'm working on that. I'm gonna make that a task for me to work on. I'm gonna let you drive more. I'm gonna trust you. Okay, that's gross. Oh my
Well,
goodness.
thank you so very much for taking time out of your morning this morning to come talk to us. We really appreciate it.
Oh, do you guys have any
we're
shows?
honored.
Oh yeah, go ahead and plug your show. Do you have any shows coming up?
No,
or
I'm asking
anything?
personally.
Oh yeah.
So our regular season starts March 17th, and then we start doing 5 shows per week, Wednesday through Saturday. You can find more information about our show times, what we're doing at lancastermagicshow.com. And we've got information about the show. It's a comedy, variety, magic show. You're going to see people appear just where you guys have seen it before, but there's also the dynamic circus arts where Labrina does the aerial acrobatics, and we've got the hilarious comedy. So it's something that's for all ages. It's more than just magic. It's, a variety show experience.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I've been seeing your Facebook stories of like you practicing and different things like that on like that hoop that, what's his name? Boston?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been seeing like your Facebook.
Yeah,
Yeah, he does the steer wheel, and I'm trying to learn it. He makes it look so easy. It's not.
Yeah.
You guys all make it look so easy. I'm still in the exact same awe from the first show. Every time we'll watch some of the stuff, and I'm just like, I've seen it. And I'm just like, how do they do it? I don't know. And it literally gives me joy. I'm like a child watching. So I can't wait to see you guys
Get excited
soon.
every time you guys are there. because I love seeing people, their faces light up, and some folks just are a little bit more like, not you guys. You're like, ah!
Yeah, I feel like
so happy.
People make the mistake that they're like the goal is to figure everything out. And again, we all, there's nothing wrong with walking into it and being like, I'm going to figure out how this trick works. But if you can suspend and just say, you know what, I understand there's some explanation of how this is being done, but I'm just going to enjoy it. It's almost like walking into Disneyland. You know that the characters that you're seeing around you, there's people walking around in those suits, but you just want to believe in the magic. And then, that's what we get to create. And we enjoy being able to spark that sense of wonder in everyone.
That is awesome. When we put this up, was it next week?
No, we just did one yesterday, so it's every other week that we do one. So.
Whenever we put this up, do you mind if we put the information and the links to be able to go to the website to get information for the shows?
Absolutely,
and things like that?
That'd be great.
And
Thank
if you see it, you feel free to share it on your own pages and whatnot.
Yeah. Also, because I know you guys are friends on Facebook. I'm not sure if you have like a business Instagram page or anything like that, but any kind of links to get more traction, more eyes on what the great stuff that you guys do. Make sure that we get that out there as well.
Oh, thanks. I was thinking of it vice versa. I was like putting something on online on my stories this morning, and I was like getting ready for a podcast with Faith and Justice, and I was like, I don't know how to tag their. I was like looking up trying to figure out how to tag your show. So any other, let us know. We'll share it.
So fine, yeah. So we'll get those links together, and we'll make sure that stuff is all there because we want. There's a few people that I've been trying to get to your show, so I'm gonna get these dates out because I love magic. It's actually one of the few things in illusion and stuff. And I'm a big kid in this arena only. So I enjoy the fact, Brett and Labrina, I enjoy, and Boston, all you guys do a great job. I enjoy the fact that you guys can make me giddy. And I have like a real genuine joy for the work that you all do. So thank you for providing that for me in my life. I need it.
Absolutely. Well, we're happy to do that. And it's something that gives us great joy to know that you and other folks like yourselves enjoy that feeling of wonder.
Yeah. Awesome. So, all right. Thank you so much. Say goodbye, and you guys can log off.
See you later.
Guys, have a great day.
All right. You too. Bye.
Thank you.
So we're gonna do an ending thing, but you guys can leave the Zoom.
Okay. See you guys.
All right.
Bye. All right. So that's all we have time for today, but we hope you got something out of talking to Labrina and Brett.
Oh yeah, it was very good to talk to a couple that's been married once, and they don't have the same kind of a background, but it goes to show you why they've been married for as long as they have, and they've had the successes because I don't think many of us was given a love and respect book and had those really hard conversations in the beginning.
Right.
A lot of us walked in with expectations, and we still do, and we're still working on it. So thank you, Brett and Labrina. We hope to see you guys very soon.
Yes.
But this is Justice of Faith signing off, saying,
Until next time, maintain your justice.
and keep your faith strong. Bye, everybody.
Bye.